Hello, everybody, and welcome to our slightly belated webinar today. Hi, Meeta.
Hi, Carl. Great to see you. Yeah, we've had some technical hiccups, haven't we, for the first time in a long time. Very frustrating.
I'm
But
afraid so. Apologies to anyone that was struggling to get in the room, but hopefully we're all set now and ready to crack on. Thanks, everyone, for your patience.
indeed. And if you're watching this in the recording, we hope that you get everything from it, even if it's not in live time, because we're going to be covering some really important stuff today.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know us, I'm Carly and this is Meeta. And today we're going to be talking all about investing in your people. And we're really excited as well that it's coinciding with Learning at Work Week. I think Learning at Work Week is one of my favourite weeks of the year. And we're having a really fun Learning at Work Week so far. So yeah, we're just going to be covering all aspects of investing in your people, and then with a bit of focus in on the specific things that you can do to make sure your people feel valued.
Absolutely.
And we also have set up a poll today. So we're going to be talking a bit about how your organisation invests in and upskills your people. So please do feel free to fill in the poll and we can take a look at that.
So what options do right? So we have options of we don't at all. So the question is, how does your organization upskill your people? Fine. So the options are that we don't at all. Well, hopefully from this webinar, people can take away some good tips to think about what to do if they want to, but don't yet. Internal training would be, I suppose, peer-to-peer, or there could be somebody in your HR team that is responsible for learning and development, external providers, and of course, coaching and mentoring, which is part of what we're going to be talking about today, isn't it, actually, Carls?
Absolutely. And all three of those methods are so valuable, and we can talk a bit about the right times to use which method exactly. And we've also got our chat function as always, so please do feel free to get chatting. I'm going to start everyone off by saying a quick hello to everybody.
Fabulous.
For joining us today.
You know, it's interesting what you said about Learning at Work Week being your favourite week, and we've picked this week for this topic because actually getting everyone out of working in their business, in their jobs, doing what they do, to actually step back and reflect. I think people find it quite uncomfortable to get out of their zone, but at the end of that session, they're like revived and refreshed. It's like they're rejuvenated. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? The impact of of investing in your people, and that's what we've called this session today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well as when you're upskilling your people, as well as actually getting the upskilling and getting the learning, most people cite that they come away with extra motivation, feel really inspired, and they feel invested in and supported. So that's the really transformative part of it.
We're getting some feedback from the chat box. Thank you, Kate. We've got it. It's working, and we've got a hello. So hello to everyone as you settle in. Definitely do the poll so we can get an understanding of the room. Carly, I know that we started a little bit late. Are we going to be doing a slightly shorter session today? What's the plan?
I mean, I think we'll just probably go through for just under 30 minutes. We won't be any more than 30 minutes. Hopefully try and keep it a bit short just in case people are short on time because of the late start.
Yeah. And it really is about taking away wherever you are in your organization at this time and thinking about from this session how you can evolve it. So it doesn't, you don't have to have a fully planned L&D structure, and neither do you have to be somebody who's never done it before. It's just about seeing what the rest of the world is doing, understanding our perspective and expertise that we're bringing along from organizations we speak to, from people, and we get to talk to both sides of the coin, if you like. We get to talk to businesses and we get to talk to employees. So hopefully we're going to bring all of that into the mix today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really great having that level of network because we get to see, like you say, Meeta, from both sides of it. So what we're going to be covering today and talking about as a group is how to retain and develop your people. Such an important topic. I mean, you probably saw in the invite, and I'm still staggered by this number, that 94% of employees said that they would have stayed in a company longer if they'd been given more training. And that was a LinkedIn poll, a really recent one. And I just think that number is startling, actually.
Yeah, I think the fact that in a time now when there is such a shortage of skills, in a time when skills are evolving, like, organizations have people, but in a few years, those skills that they require from that person are going to change. Holding on to your talent through investing in them is absolutely, I think, has to be the number one priority, strategic priority for an organization.
Yeah, absolutely agree. There's loads of stats which we can talk about later, but the message seems quite clear that it's really essential that we're investing in people in this way for various reasons. We're also going to be talking about how to know which training to provide, because a lot of people in my network ask me, how do I know what my team need? And so we've got some really helpful tips on that. We're going to cover a bit about how training people doesn't have to cost lots of money. Actually, doesn't have to cost any money sometimes, and it can be super cost effective. So we'll cover that off for you. And then at the end, we're going to talk a bit about the power of coaching as well, because it's such a relevant and powerful topic.
Indeed. It's kind of what makes it stick, really, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. And I think it also makes for a world where we're not striving for perfectionism. We're striving for great, but we're not expecting everyone to have, to be perfect. We're all trying, we're learning, we're making mistakes, we're improving. And if people feel like they're on that journey together, then they're more likely to be open to trying things, aren't they?
Absolutely, it's so true. I'm just going to give a quick update on the poll, and just for anyone who did join late for the technical reasons, we do have a poll there. It'd be wonderful if you could kindly click on that just so we can get a feel for the room. But at the moment, it looks like we're the highest answer here is internal training. So that's the biggest way that you're upskilling your people at the moment. So that's really interesting. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But Meeta, did you want to kick us off a bit about the best ways to retain and develop your people?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is, as you can tell, my passion, we, as a talent consultancy, it all starts with who you bring in and making sure that they're the right fit with the right skill set and, the right person who will join your world and feel part of your world. But actually, that's the beginning, right, of how somebody's going to make an impact and create roots in your organization. So the stat about investment in your people giving you a 500% return is crazy. But the way I would see that working is that it starts right at the beginning. So actually, you start teaching people. Actually, you start teaching people when you interview them, because you open up your world to them. You explain what your world's going to be like. You do biographical interviews. You do cultural interviews. You tell them about the journey of the organization. So actually, you start at interview, but then you have to be able to be consistent and duplicate knowledge and expertise when you induct. That's probably going to be the first time you do more developing of your people. And then it all becomes part of the fabric of the journey of your employee in your organization. And you're going to look at not just their time in the organization, you're going to look at their performance to get an understanding of where they need to be developed. You're going to look at how engaged they are, because when you spend time with them, hopefully you'll see that engagement go up and productivity go up. You'll see them align more with the cultural environments and making sure everybody's on the same page. But to get that connectivity, it's got to be inbuilt through every layer. So as we said, interview, induction, then your weekly reviews. Let's start understanding, have real clarity. The job spec is my favorite document that nobody uses, right? See the job spec at interview, goes in a drawer, might come out for appraisal, but generally we don't use it. Make that a working document, or pull out the 5 key competencies and the top skills, and really use that as your blueprint for success, so that employees have that clarity. And then, start doing skills gap analysis with each of your people, and not just from a role perspective. What about their personal journey? What do they want to achieve as an individual? Because if an employee feels invested in as an individual as well as an employee, you're going to get far greater retention, loyalty, performance, engagement. And they say, by they, I mean McKinsey, looking at some of the statistics out there, McKinsey say that the most successful organizations are those that focus equally on performance and people. So the leadership style you would need would be an environment where you empower your people. And that's where I think we talk about inductions, clarity on job descriptions, having weekly touch points, establishing skills gaps quickly, working on their personal development plan, whether that's an annual appraisal. Try and do it more regularly. Maybe have a quarterly touch point, do a big review once a year, but then have quarterly touch points, and always come back to the individualized approach to learning. Doesn't mean you can't send them on group training sessions. We run both open courses where everyone can attend, and we do bespoke one-to-one sessions as well. But really think about what they need, because that's what's going to make them feel valued, and that's what's going to help them grow and help them stay in your organization, help you keep them.
I love it. Meets it's so interesting because you talk about it really starting that early on in the employee life cycle, like at the interview stage. And it's interesting because I have individuals say to me after they've left a role that has been a mishire for them, oh, I had a bad feeling at the interview stage. And it just goes to show that if you're not getting it right at interview in terms of your retention and development goals and desires, people are going to pick up on that. And actually, that might be the reason why that might be one of the reasons, one of the things that added to their decision to leave that organisation. So it is really early on. And you're speaking to people about your values and how you're going to look after them, even before the interview, even in your job advertisement, even in your employer brand proposition. So it's really important that people realise it starts right at the beginning.
It does. And it's, I think for me, the passion for what we do and why we now have this full 360 approach is because it's so joint up. So you're right, the best time was the interview or the advert for the interview. That's when we start. But actually, the next best time is now. So don't think, oh, we haven't done it, so now it's not going to work. Draw a line and say, right, from here on, we're going to get better. We're going to do better, and we're going to get better outcomes for everyone, and therefore for the organisation as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best time to make these changes, even if you think, oh, it's frustrating, we've been doing it wrong, you can literally start afresh any day and start making positive movements in the right direction for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the ways that you can tell what training people need. So we get asked this question a lot. How do I know what training my people need? How do I identify skills gaps? And there's loads of really simple, basic ways you can do it. Funnily enough, what I've got here is that the first thing is really at the interview stage. That's when you are looking at somebody's skills, and that's when you're thinking, okay, we definitely want to hire this person. They've got 90% of what it takes to do the job, but it's at the identification of the 10% that they might need a bit of upskilling in from the interview stage that you bring that in and make sure that that's set up for them as early as possible in their induction.
Yeah, prioritise.
Exactly. And appraisals, I think, are so powerful for identifying learning needs. And I think it's really important that a part of every formal appraisal process does have a section on what training somebody might need, both from the managers and their individual point of view, and then you can come together to decide. But a quite common mistake that organisations and people teams sometimes make is to just do a once-a-year appraisal, look at the training needs then, and forget that actually throughout every week in the 12-month period of the year that there are new learning needs coming up all the time. So that's why we also say it's important to utilise your weekly or monthly one-to-ones as well to look at what these learning needs might be.
Yeah, very much. I mean, they say that the skills in organisations now are evolving so much that in 5 years, an employee, the job they do won't look like anything like the job they're doing now. And so that's pretty scary stuff. So if we're not continually investing, we are going to have people that just feel disengaged because they're not succeeding, they're not winning, or the organisation isn't able to deliver on what their business needs. So it really is important to, I think, look ahead at where you need to be. So you're right, once a year just isn't enough.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Skills are evolving at the speed of light at the moment. The skills that people have got now aren't going to be future-proof. They're not going to be fit for purpose for what they need in a few years' time. So if organisations aren't upskilling now, then they're going to be in a bit of a sticky wicket because they're just not going to have the people power to do the job that's needed.
Yeah, and one area that I'm really passionate about is the soft skills. So there's skills that are specific to a role. So the professional skills that people need for a role, maybe an accountant or HR, something like that, or a company secretary. But on the other side, actually, the soft skills are the communication, the time management, the ability to engage, their impact. I mean, those are just a few of the things we run. But actually, those can be the difference between success or failure for somebody in a role. Because actually, if we invest in the soft skills, people become more resilient, they become more agile, they're able to adapt to changes in an organization, and they become better at working under pressure. And that's just a couple of the things, but 4 of the things, that actually are hugely impactful. So when you're thinking about your people, don't just think about their specific role and almost like the qualifications they need, because I think they're different to skills.
I completely agree. And actually, we're told time and again, we might have a fantastic accountant in an organisation, but actually they need a bit of help with their soft skills. They don't know how to interview people for their team, or they don't know how to delegate or manage people. And so that's when this soft skills training really comes into its own.
I'm an accountant by trade from many years ago, and I always used to be told, oh, you explain things very well. I mean, imagine having an accountant that can't actually explain what their numbers are and what they mean. So communication skills, they're important for everyone, and it's thinking like that. And it's not, for me, I think we often can say, oh, they're just like that. Oh, they're just like that. That's how that person is. And I think that's really underselling that individual, because we all have room for growth. We all have room for, wanting to do better and be better. And I think just having that conversation and asking people like where they think their strengths are and where they'd like to improve, I think is very powerful.
I totally agree. And actually, a really great way to do it can be surveys and polls as well, because sometimes when you ask people in a one-to-one, they don't actually know because they're focusing on the one-to-one, they haven't had time to think about it. But when you send out a survey, people aren't sort of ambushed by the question, and they've got time to think and respond. And then you might get all sorts of really interesting facts and data that you weren't aware of as well. So that's a really good one. And another way, Meeta, that I think is really valuable for identifying learning needs is making sure that you've got the right managers in place, because great managers who work really closely with their people will know, and they'll be able to identify these needs really quickly and then support the team member through whether they think there's a skills gap there as well. And that all comes down to coaching and upskilling your managers. So it's one of those things that cascades through.
Yeah, it does. And you're right, it starts with the behaviours of the organisation and what they hold as important, because if you invest in the people on the ground, but there isn't a system or a set of skills that are demonstrated by senior level, then the authenticity of that journey is misaligned, and then people won't, you may do the work, but it won't stick.
Absolutely, exactly. And actually, that was my other point going to be that when you're looking at training needs, you also need to think about your company culture. So if you're implementing a new EDIB policy, or for example, if you've just set up a hybrid working policy, these are things that your people are going to need training on. They're not going to know what the policy is. So they're going to need support learning what your EDIB policy looks like and how they have to utilise it at their level. And hybrid working has been a really popular topic for us recently, because everyone loves hybrid working. No one wants it to go away. And yet people are struggling with it. It's not easy to change the working habits of a lifetime to adapt to a new way of working.
Very much so. It's interesting. We in the invite we wrote, invest in people enough that they can leave. This is Richard Branson, not us. This is what he said. But treat them well enough so that they don't. And I think that takes a lot of guts and a lot of confidence in an organisation, because actually every employee every day makes a choice to come to work. And as easily they can say, do you know what, this isn't for me anymore. So as an organisation, we, that people and performance equal, I call it high challenge, high support in our organisation. It's being able to demonstrate how you do that. So again, put it into your induction folders. This is how we develop our people. Talk about it at interview. Keep it as part of your, hey, we're doing a quarterly, we do our weekly catch-ups, but please excuse that noise. That is my crazy dog. We'll ignore him.
Gonna have to see him. Can he come in?
I might have to let him in if he does that again. But yeah, in terms of having the ethos of an organisation to say we are forever growing, we're forever learning, we never take average for granted, to be able to and then live by that. And what you said about, and finally we are coming on to cost, but what you said about it not needing to cost the earth, I think is really, and I think probably one of the most important messages of today is sort of get on the train, get on the learning train, have that in your world. And then I think employees almost expand into wanting more and more learning. It's like they say, the more you know, the less you think you know. It's like you open up the lid and you're like, wow, and that's a great feeling to be around people like that.
It's great because it fosters a culture of continual improvement. And I love that Branson quote, because I think what he's getting at is people love working at the highest level of their ability and being the best they can be. And they're not going to leave a company if they're getting that fulfillment. So that's why, although it seems like a really risky and scary statement, it seems to work.
It does work. And I know we're going through our own we're not doing a restructure, we're doing a refinement at the Maine Group. And part of that is embedding learning. We do lunch and learns. So we incentivize learning with a bit of food, because you get the stores up and you get the brain working and everyone the energy increases. So it's having little ways that work for your organization. And I think a great way, as you, Carly, you spoke about surveys, we speak about the weekly sort of touch points, but actually you could just do a team brainstorm and say, right, this is what I've seen, but what do you see? Because a manager can never see everything, right? So it's having that collaboration in the learning journey as well.
It's so true. I'm just going to quickly pop and get my charger because I seem to be running out of battery more quickly than I expected. So sorry, I'm just going to plug in quickly. But yeah, it's so true. And actually, Meeta, talking about internal brainstorming is a really nice segue into talking about how training can be cost effective. And we're going to talk a bit about internal training shortly. But I feel like to talk about cost of training and how it can be cost effective, we've really got to start by talking about the cost of not training. Because when you look at these stats, if you think 94% of people in this huge LinkedIn poll would have stayed in their organisation for longer had they been invested in with the proper training, that means that organisations are spending so much money on attrition, on rehiring, on recruitment costs, on the onboarding of costs. The time and money spent on that is absolutely billions over the year. And if you can actually just retain these people for a lot longer, all of those headaches, all of that time and all that money will stay in the business and the problems will go out the window.
And the knowledge that they have, that you've built into them, because you do, like we said, from the minute people join, you're training them, you're embedding knowledge of your organisation into it.
And then how disruptive it is in your team that stay when people are leaving and there's a churn flow and factor. It really is a challenge. So I think first of all, it's more important to say that actually we can't afford not to be training. But equally, I am aware that people are challenged with budgets and they sort of think that training is going to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and it really doesn't have to. So one thing that we love to help organisations with is set up their own internal training workshops and processes. We did one yesterday with our team for Learning at Work Week. It was a really great way to get everyone together, like Meeta said, have some lunch, but it was a really great way of using peer-to-peer learning, which is so powerful, and it gives everyone a voice, and it actually allows people to showcase their skills and knowledge and bring in the subject matter experts that you've got in your team. And then we also combined it with some senior leadership teachings and trainings, which was new information as well, and that was overlaid in the same workshop. The team said that they came away feeling engaged. They all got a nice lunch, which they obviously enjoyed. And it was a team building sort of feeling as well. Everyone came away with that extra camaraderie. And that cost us, nothing, just a couple of quid for lunch. And so even little things like that you can set up really easily. And if you want any help and tips on setting up internal workshops, me and Meeta are always really happy to chat to you about how you can do that.
Yeah, don't know if you know, but we get bloody excited about these things. And as much as we're in this session today, we are available on LinkedIn. We are available. All our details will be at the end of the session, so you can call us. We do this because we just want to help organisations be better, be happier, be more successful, and the people in them be better, be more successful, happier. So absolutely, just reach out to us. And I always say that I don't think I would recommend anything out to our network and our audience that we wouldn't have tried ourselves and tested ourselves. So hopefully you know that we're not just here to talk the talk. We absolutely walk the walk in our own organisation and with clients that we've worked with as well. You talk about the peer-to-peer learning. There's also a very cost-effective way of getting external support without having to put every member of your organisation through the training as well. So what would you see that looking like?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think as we know, every individual in your team is going to have a different learning need, but there are some things that it's really useful to put everyone in the same training for. You get everyone looking in the same direction, everyone feeling like they've had a bit of a team motivation and bonding experience. And group training is really cost effective because actually you're normally paying for the trainer's time, and actually you could put 20 people into that course rather than 1 or 2, and it means that you're upskilling 20 people versus 1. So that's one way that organisations are really utilising the cost benefits.
Yeah, and they also come away from their desks. Either it's off-site or it's somewhere in a different room, and it's like they feel like they've been through a bit of a journey together. So they hold on to that experiential element as well as the learning.
Exactly. A lot of people tag these group training sessions onto like a party or something like that, or a team building drink, or something fun that they're doing afterwards, and that's quite common actually when we're called in. It's part of a day when they're doing something as well, and that way they associate the learning with the fun as well. So it's a really nice way to link the two together psychologically.
And they feel invested in, right? They feel like they feel seen, they feel looked after, and the company will benefit anyway because they'll get all that knowledge and expertise back into their world. So yeah, the group stuff is very powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the internal training, it really is useful, and it really does allow people to start working at a higher level when they're conveying their knowledge, and it helps to reaffirm to them that they do know a lot of information and that they're valued and the organisation want them to share it.
Yeah. What's your take on the Zoom versus face-to-face?
So I have to say my favourite is being in the classroom, and I don't think you can take away from that, but I do think you can get excellent Zoom facilitator-led training. And actually, Meeta, even some things are really relevant for e-learning where you don't even actually engage with a trainer, but you just see the e-learning videos and you learn from there. And I think it really depends on the subject matter. We've got a training course coming up on difficult conversations, and for that one I've said I really think we need to try and be in the room for that one if possible, because I think it's so much to do with how you're feeling, even the sort of the non-verbal signs that you can pick up on when you're in a room that you wouldn't get in a Zoom room. But that's not to take anything away from Zoom training. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's about accessibility again and cost, because organisations sometimes they can't afford to let everyone go off site, but they can give them 2 hours, or they haven't got, they've only got the budget that stretches to a certain amount. So perhaps it's then less impactful on the bottom line if they can do it on a Zoom structure. Also geographical. You can get people from one area. You can put people from, the country, around the world. And I think that having your people on the same page, I think is very powerful, especially for things around culture training, soft skills, communication, hybrid work, all of the things that actually is the behaviours of work rather than specifically the job they're doing as well.
Yeah. I completely agree, and it's really interesting. We've been running some courses that are some people in the UK and some people globally, but they're cohorts, and actually it really helps them to work together in a way they wouldn't necessarily get sort of 4 hours to work together closely. So it's brilliant. And sometimes, like tomorrow, we're running a hybrid session, so we're actually on site with the organisation, but they've got some people coming into Zoom and some people coming into the room. So there's this hybrid way of learning as well, which is always exciting.
The point is, there are no barriers. If you want to do this, there is always a way to find a solution, both geographical, logistical, and financial.
Absolutely. Meeta, I think we were going to finish by talking a little bit about coaching, and I know that you're a big advocate of coaching, so it'd be great to hear from you on that.
Well, I finished what I last said with the financial commitment, and I feel that coaching is essentially the value for money piece, if you like, because it's one thing going to a session, having a booklet, doing the work, but how do we guarantee that it's embedded? And that is how I see coaching. There's coaching, there's mentoring, and they're two very different things. Coaching is sort of a stop-start. It's a session a week, or it could be problem specific. It doesn't have to be ongoing. Whereas mentoring is something that becomes part of a regular cycle of engagement with somebody that can always help you reflect and upskill. But yeah, so for me, the power of coaching is the fact that it helps you embed the learning to make it the standard. Because as humans, our muscle memory pulls us to what we do naturally. And that isn't always best for what we need to do in our working world. We want to be as authentic as possible, but we also want to be as effective, successful, the best communicators, the best, most productive and engaged people. So it's understanding. I think what coaching helps us do is personalize it. And I know for our training, which I think is one of our strongest USPs, and that's why I'm going to shout about it, is that we embed coaching as part of the cost of training, which I don't think any other organisation does. We can do coaching separately, but we also say that we will spend the time to ensure, and we do this little exercise after every section of training, which is the stop, start, continue. From this learning, you probably came in with knowledge, but you'll start applying that knowledge better now. So what will you continue? What will you stop doing? And what will you start doing? I think that is enough to embed an outcome and then revisiting that. I also think that in terms of coaching, the power of that is that you don't need it to be from somebody senior coaching somebody junior. Coaching peer-to-peer is really powerful. And we use a system, and we teach a system called T-Grow, which really is, T is the topic, G is the goal, what that person wants to achieve. I've written it down because I always talk about it in a different format. I'm going to do it in order. R is a reality, so what the actual current situation is. O for options, so what are your options now? And W is, well, what actions are you going to take? And I've just mentioned 5 things, and you think, oh, I can do that in 10 minutes. No, this is about taking yourself away, going to a coffee shop, maybe sitting in a room with a whiteboard, and starting to really think about what your actual reality is. Think about the situation, think about the learning you've done and what's worked and what hasn't, and where you want to get to. Take a peer member, take a member of your team. You can do it with somebody at home. If somebody knows how to coach, they can coach you on anything, anywhere.
I absolutely love that. Sorry, Meeta, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could just talk about it. I was just going to say that it really helps to overcome challenges that if a manager's looking in, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to figure that out now. But actually, if you have an approach of coaching in your organisation, you can leave the manager out of it. You know, the peer-to-peer thing.
It's so powerful, isn't it? I think, I mean, so many people sort of have a workplace dilemma that they're grappling with for years, and then all of a sudden they can just be offered some coaching. And like you say, it could be a peer, it could be a colleague, it could be a manager in a different department. It doesn't even have to be anyone in the organisation. It can be external. And you can see these amazing light bulb moments where people are working through. I do think it's really similar to like life coaching, like people will use outside of work. It's about using that inside of work, or even holistically having life and business coaching. It's all the same thing, and it helps improve. If you're improving in life, you're improving in work, and vice versa, I believe.
Absolutely. And what I would say about coaching, again, is that it helps people to feel seen and heard and therefore valued, and therefore it will improve your retention. So coming full circle to that quote about invest in people enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so that they don't. It all starts with maybe bringing them in, but then it's how you train them, how you coach them, how you invest in them. And Carly, thank you for having me on today. I have loved talking about this topic with you.
It's been such a pleasure. I know we could literally talk about it all day, but we won't right now because obviously we promised we would try and keep it to time. But as Meeta said earlier, like we're always around and we love talking about this. So if anyone ever just wants to pick up the phone and have a chat about any of these topics, we are always available.
Amazing. And thank you everyone for bearing with our little technical glitch at the beginning. We don't often get gremlins, but we did have some this morning. But we look forward to hearing your feedback on this session as well, and we hope you found it really useful.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Thanks, Meeta.
Thank you so much.
See you soon. Bye, everyone.